Okay, can everyone see the verse? Okay. So wonderful again to join with everyone, and we'll enter into our reading for today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Apratam nastvaya kimnu Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara Yannontar Hridayam Vishya Tamohamsi Svarochisha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O Lord, you are the master of the entire universe. What have you not given to us? You have entered the core of our hearts and dissipated the darkness of our ignorance by your effulgence. This is the supreme gift. We do not need a material donation. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaj was offered a benediction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he replied, "O my Lord, I am fully satisfied. I do not need any material benediction." Similarly, when Prahlad Maharaj was offered a benediction by Lord Nrsingadev, he also refused to accept it and instead declared that a devotee should not be like a vanik, a mercantile man, who gives something in exchange for some profit. One who becomes a devotee for some material profit is not a pure devotee. Brahmanas are always enlightened by the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the heart. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sanivisto mataha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. And because the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are always directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are not greedy for material wealth. What is absolutely necessary, they possess, but they do not want an expanded kingdom. An example of this was given by Vamanadev. Acting as a brahmachari, Lord Vamanadev wanted only 3 paces of land. Aspiring to possess more and more for personal sense gratification is simply ignorance. And this ignorance is conspicuous by its absence from the heart of a Brahmana or Vaishnava. We'll offer our invocation prayers seeking the mercy of our teachers and of all the devotees. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. So, in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, we are entering into a very significant time in the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, that he's already returned to the kingdom of Ayodhya after his exile, and he is ruling his kingdom once again. And there is, at least, at this time in the Leela, there's harmony in Ayodhya because they're under Ram Rajya. And sometimes this is invoked, this concept is invoked in modern politics in India, in South Asia, this idea of Ram Rajya. Politicians are still referencing this as so sometimes for self-serving, reasons, but acknowledging this Ram Rajya as the ideal, the ultimate kind of utopian ideal of having a divine ruler who truly has the deepest interest of the citizens at heart. So we'll speak more about this. I just wanted to also seek all of your blessings so that we can have a nice discussion this morning, and we can all walk away with something to carry with us, something that will be a spark in our spiritual lives, in our practice, something that keeps us inspired. So, yeah, there's this time of Ram Rajya in Ayodhya, and Lord Ram has just completed a wonderful fire sacrifice, a wonderful offering for the benefit of all of the citizens. And he's offering some remuneration to the brahmanas who perform this ritual, as is the custom, of course. We have dakshin, but Ram is offering them the directions. He's offering them something very, very substantial. He offers one group of brahmanas the north direction. He offers another group of brahmanas the south, east, west, and all of the directions in between. So Lord Ram is very satisfied and content to offer these brahmanas such a vast expanse of territory in his kingdom. So what we see is that Lord Ram offers this readily. There's no false etiquette here. Sometimes we may see that someone will offer something kind of with this idea in mind that no, okay, they're not going to take it. I'm just offering it out of etiquette. And like we see, someone offers to pay for something, they may reach into their pocket, but then they're kind of waiting for the moment where the other person will say, no, that's not necessary, I'll take care of it. So this is not what's happening here. Lord Ram is really making this offer wholeheartedly. And also the Brahmins are also not doing something out of etiquette, saying, no, it's not necessary, I don't need this, but also secretly hoping that they'll receive that. They're very sincerely rejecting this offering because they have been given something infinitely more valuable. That Lord Ram has illuminated them and destroyed their ignorance. So this is something that they're carrying with them forevermore, not only in this lifetime, but as an ongoing benediction in their lives. And because they're advanced spiritually, they see this. And just as Srila Prabhupada mentions here, Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj were also offered benedictions. And when that time came, all they wanted was more devotion, more connection to Krishna, because they understood that this is their ultimate wealth and that nothing else will truly benefit them. Um, and one who has perspective about how brief and how fleeting material happiness can be, and how brief and fleeting this life, material life, is. Um, there's a sobriety there that allows advanced devotees to invest fully in their spiritual connection, to invest fully in their devotional service. So Dhruva Maharaj actually had some material desire initially. He wanted to be the ruler of a kingdom. He wanted the adoration and attention of his father, which was lacking, something that he deeply wanted in his heart. And that's what initially impelled him toward meditation and toward his spiritual practice and toward his renunciation. So from that desire, though, blossomed something else, something unexpected. And when the Lord appeared before Dhruva Maharaj, everything was satisfied. His yearning for a kingdom, his yearning for the connection to his father, those were immediately taken care of because he had a higher taste. He felt something much deeper than he even knew was possible. And at that time, he prayed to the Lord. And he's, along the lines of, Lord, these are just pieces of broken glass that I was yearning for, that I was after. And now that I see you before me, I understand that I need nothing more. I'm fully satisfied. All I want is devotion to you. So we can see on a practical level that genuine spirituality, a genuine spiritual connection, is actually very, very threatening to materialistic society, to materialistic ideals, because we're constantly being told that, perhaps if I have X, Y, and Z, then I will be happy. Then I will finally feel deep satisfaction within my heart. And there are so many industries that are marketing this idea to their consumers that if you want a happy life, then you just need this. No matter that you didn't feel deep satisfaction up until this point with everything else that you already spent money on. But if you just get this one more thing, maybe this will be the missing piece of the puzzle. Maybe everything will finally fall into place. So we see that, this is what consumer culture is all about. And so this is a very practical idea for our modern age, that we're constantly being told that perhaps if you have this one more thing, one little, one little jewel on top of the pile, then perhaps you'll be happy. And what we see is that genuine, deeply advanced devotees, that they are atmaram, that they are self-satisfied from deep within through the connection of the atma, of the soul, to Krishna. So when someone is atmaram, this ability to kind of sell false happiness, or this ability to convince others that material things are what they need, that enterprise is kind of compromised. So genuine spirituality is something that's actually very threatening to materialistic society. So, of course, in spiritual life, in some traditions, and at some point along the way, we find that there's also karma kanda, which is seeking out material benedictions from Krishna or from the demigods. And this, it's explained that it does work if you have some material desire and you approach the demigods, you approach the Lord with that material desire, especially through some kind of ritualistic performance or austerities, it may well be given. But this is like asking, asking a billionaire if he can give you a couple dollars, something like that. It's, seeking a material benediction from a personality who is actually the object of the soul's ultimate desire. It's like almost like looking right past the Lord, or looking right past these great personalities who are so deeply connected to the Lord. So even if that material desire is granted, we really miss out in the process. And Krishna also wants more for us. Krishna is Dina Bandhu. He's our true well-wisher and friend, even in our fallen state. He wants our ultimate good, and material benedictions do not amount to our ultimate good. And as Srila Prabhupada explained here, that if we become devotees for some material reason, it's not pure devotion. And what we find, at least what I've seen, is that those who connect to Krishna consciousness with some material gain in mind, our sincerity is tested. So either there may be some burnout there, if the material desire is all that the person wants, there may be some cheaper or more simple way to go about attaining that. So the person may become distracted from the path of devotional service, or that material desire will shift in some way. It will become dovetailed in some way. So either these material desires fade through the practice of devotional service and through the association of devotees, or at least it's transmuted in some way, gradually purified by chanting, by association with devotees. And material desires stay with us for a long time, quite often. Of course, some devotees are just ready. They just enter into Krishna consciousness, they become immersed, and they have that conviction. That's a great mercy. But for many of us, material desires remain on some level, or they reappear, they come and go. But the prayer is that we start to at least see them a little bit more clearly as they are. Krishna illuminates us within. In the presence of light, there can be no darkness. So everything is exposed and revealed, and especially, dadati pratigrinati guyam akyati prichati bhunkte bojayate chaiva sadvidam priti lakshanam. We're encouraged to reveal our hearts in confidence to the devotees, and devotees will inquire confidentially from us. Of course, not that we parade down the street or go into the temple to start telling everyone about all of our material desires that we're carrying with us, but some close devotees, some senior devotees who are invested in us and are invested in our spiritual well-being, it's very beneficial to share about these desires that remain with us, and how we can either help to how we can find ways to cope with them and offer them, at least, or to pray to Krishna, please, Lord, help me to find a way to lose this attraction in time, and to become more and more attracted to your service, to become more and more attracted to your devotees and to the processes of bhakti. So, it's explained that sometimes our material desires are like when you turn off a ceiling fan. So when we come in contact with Krishna consciousness, it may well be that the switch is flipped and the metaphorical fan is turned off. But of course, it still spins for a little bit, because there's this energy, there's been so much inertia, and it could be countless lifetimes that this fan was spinning. So when the switch is flipped, it is off, but there may be some residual effect that we feel. And that's something to pray sincerely about, and something to, we hope, Srila Prabhupada encouraged in many, many cases, this yukta vairagya, that there's some way, if we have some desire that in some way is offerable to Krishna, it can be adjusted, it can be made into part of our offering, then that can be a very beautiful way to rectify these desires, at least in the beginning. And then maybe it may fade away more completely in later, more advanced stage of spiritual life. But everybody's different. So, those who do receive certain material desires are those who, even without desire, just receive great material benediction. Sometimes it can be karmic, or sometimes, in the case of a devotee, Krishna may personally intervene and see that the devotee can do well to serve with certain material resources. So we find that great devotees who happen to be materially wealthy, they come into that material wealth with a desire to offer it. Srila Prabhupada emphasized simple living and high thinking. So what does that really mean? So it may look for some devotees like they're living in very, very materially simple circumstances, austere, living on a farm, whatever it might be. But that's not necessarily always the case. It's a paradigm, and Srila Prabhupada encouraged all of us to carry that. No matter how it looks, the essence is the same. So one may have great material resources, but they can still practice simple living, high thinking. And how is that possible? By using those resources for the ultimate pleasure of Krishna. So not for the pleasure of our own senses, but for the pleasure of Krishna, of his senses. And Krishna is called Rishikesh, the master of the senses. So it's very important to ask ourselves what truly brings satisfaction, what really inspires us, what really gives us a deep satisfaction, not a temporary, fleeting one, but what actually touches the heart and soul, what actually knocks at that door of the heart and causes our soul to rejoice. So that's why, in Bhagavad Gita, we have this verse, chapter 2, text 69. Just opening to the verse here. Chapter 2, text 69. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato munehe. The translation is, what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. So this applies in many ways. We're encouraged to wake up early in the morning, the Brahma Muhurta hour, considered to be most favorable. And this is a time when most of the world is asleep. So literally it holds true. But also we can say that Krishna is explaining how for the introspective sage is asleep to all of the things that others are awake to. And similarly, others are awake, or others are asleep to the things that are of the most value to the introspective sage. So in this way, simple living, high thinking, this paradigm relates to that verse in that we keep our lives simple by upholding the priorities of devotional life. And that's by necessity, it's quite simple, actually. It may sound so complex, but actually what's more complex is pursuing a life that doesn't address the deepest yearning of the soul. That's very complex, because then we're struggling with all of these fleeting enjoyments and fleeting happiness, meanwhile feeling so much emptiness on the level of the true self. So while devotional service may feel complicated in terms of some sacrifices that we have to make, or some kind of battling with the mind, not feeling attracted to it at first, ultimately we're moving toward a much simpler life, because when the self, the deepest self, is satisfied, then our life becomes simple, because we're not constantly disappointed in pursuit of happiness that doesn't quite stick. And of course, it's a gradual adjustment. I remember myself, I often remember how when I first started coming to the temple, I felt some relief when I would walk back out into the street. I would go to the Bhakti Center, spend some time with the devotees there, spend some time with the brahmacharis, and it was wonderful. It was great. It was inspiring. We had wonderful friendships. I was engaged in service so nicely. And Adipurusha Prabhu was there. Teodoro Prabhu was there, who I see in the back, doing his floral arrangements. Everyone was engaged in devotional service, such a dynamic atmosphere in the ashram. But then I would leave at the end, in the evening. I wasn't living in the ashram at that time. I would leave and I would walk out into the street of New York, the East Village. And I must admit, and I could feel at that time, I was able to acknowledge, there was some feeling of like, okay, back to life. And it's so interesting how that can feel like life, because of our conditioning. So hopefully, gradually in time, and it can be gradual, we start to feel a little bit more like when we go into the temple, we feel the, and when we meet with the devotees, we feel that sigh of relief that, okay, now this is real life. This is my deepest happiness. So, this is something that, in Bhagavad Gita says that material happiness is like nectar in the beginning and like poison in the end. So it may feel very exciting and very wonderful, but in time we tire of it and it takes on almost a poisonous effect where our heart and soul become wearied by these things, because it's like, the example is given like, well, this is different actually. But it's just wearying because it's not what we really, really want. And we're avoiding what's right in front of us. If we've been fortunate enough to be connected to the devotees, that can be like poison in the beginning, because it's like poison to our conditioned senses. It's like poison to our conditioned state of understanding, and it can be quite confronting also, because entering into spiritual life, it also brings many things to the surface that we've kind of suppressed for a long time. It's like shaking a container of water that has dirt at the bottom. So when we start really moving in spiritual life, some of the dirt will rise to the top. And we may even feel, wow, is this spiritual practice making me a worse person? Am I somehow a worse person now? But that's just because we're getting a chance to look at ourselves more deeply, to look at our conditioned state more deeply. So that can feel like poison in the beginning, but like nectar in the end, because ultimately we're addressing our deepest yearning and our deepest happiness. You experience happiness on a different level, especially around devotees who are really tasting that. We can see it even before we ourselves have kind of reached that level. We feel inspired and heartened by that. So in time, we come to understand more and more, especially through seeing those who value it, we come to understand the value of what we've really been given by the Lord, by the devotees, by Guru. And in this way, it's like the Brahmanas in this pastime. They so beautifully say, Lord, we don't need anything material from you. You've already given us everything. What have you not given us, is what they say to Lord Ram. So of course, seeing this value is paramount, to our spiritual progress, because when we see the value of what we've been given, the natural product of that, the natural result is gratitude. And gratitude is a very, very deep thing. It inspires us to serve. It allows us to feel that we have a debt to pay. Of course, it's not a transactional thing, as explained here. It's not really a transactional thing. We recognize that actually we can never repay our debt. What can we do to evenly reciprocate with the mercies that we've received? But at the same time, the gratitude does inspire us to try to do whatever we can, to try to do our little part, and to try to live a life that is in remembrance of all of the mercy that we've received. Also gives confidence to recognize what profound mercy we've received. We may not have anything special to offer, but at the same time, we've been recipients of such mercy, and that's empowering. So that gratitude really inspires us to serve, and our whole life can be an offering. Our whole life can be an offering of gratitude and of love. So, too much pressure for material success can be very dangerous. And, we have so many examples of that. But, the notion that we don't have value if we don't succeed in kind of precedented material ways, but ultimately our deepest success and our deepest happiness is found in acting upon the gratitude that we've been given so much spiritually, and that we want, whatever we do, whether it falls into the category of our work, our material, our so-called material life, or just our direct devotional service, that we want to offer these things in gratitude and with remembrance of Krishna. Of course, all of the rules and regulations in Krishna consciousness are subservient to a higher principle, which is to always remember Krishna and to never forget Krishna. And Krishna gives us remembrance and forgetfulness. He tells us in Bhagavad Gita. So we pray for that ongoing remembrance and that ongoing gratitude that will spur us on in our spiritual life. And, ultimately, whatever we do, we have a natural inclination to serve, and we're not the doer. So this recognition is also empowering. It's not disempowering. Here in this verse, Lord Ram is addressed as Bhuvaneshwara, the master of the whole universe. So in this way, we are trying to please, and we're trying to serve the servants of the master of the whole universe. So in this way also, we're connected. We're not out to sea. We're not just floating independently trying to do our own thing. We're linked up to a much, much greater order in this world, in this universe, and beyond. So that's deeply satisfying to the heart and soul. So the Brahmanas in this verse, they are cognizant, fully cognizant, and feeling that kind of gratitude. And we see that they're acting in an exemplary way. And they recognize that the presence of Lord Ram right in front of them, just as Dhruva Maharaj saw, once the Lord was standing right in front of him, he understood that I don't need these things that I thought I needed before. So for us, we can try to carry that with us too, to recognize the mercy that we've received, to see in so many ways how Krishna and his devotees are making themselves available. They're right in front of us in so many ways, through the holy name, through the deity, through the devotees, through our service, through Srila Prabhupada's books and teachings. There's so much that's been placed right in front of us freely. So in that way, hopefully we can see that this is what we can give more priority to, more attention to, and whatever remaining material desires are with us, we can, like these Brahmanas, say, you know what, Krishna, actually I don't need that. I thought I did for so long, but you've given so much. Let me invest more in that. Let me experience that more and more deeply. Let me define who I am by that, by what I've received from you. So I'll stop here. Thank you all so much for being with us, and for the Sangha. And I'd like to thank the Bhakti Center for the opportunity to come together and share about Srimad Bhagavatam. So thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Any questions or thoughts? Most welcome.
You spoke a lot about getting a material benediction from Krishna, and getting an opportunity when he says, well, what can I give you? What do you want? And then gratitude. And we're reflecting on the idea that there's a Hasidic proverb that says, who is a strong man? You know that one? One who controls his passions. Who is a wealthy man? One who is satisfied with whatever Krishna gives. It may look like a lot, it may look like something painful, but to choose, just we have the freedom to choose to be satisfied. Thank you, Lord. We were talking to somebody recently who was, when he was brahmachari, saying, I want to get married. I want to have a wife. You're not supposed to be alone. And, it'd be so nice to have companionship and serving Krishna together. So he was like dissatisfied. And then after he got married, I was talking to him, he goes, oh, I got this burden of my wife and I have that family. So that he remained unsatisfied no matter what the external conditions were. It's like hilarious, how silly we are that, we're thinking the external condition is what makes me feel like, okay, I'm happy and I'm going to serve Krishna. But actually, to choose to be satisfied under any circumstance. Thank you, Krishna, for this circumstance. How can I serve you under this circumstance? Kind of an interesting that we have that parachute, that we have that, flip that switch and say, okay. My idea of what I need and what I want, and what it be, I should be grateful for, is just a fabrication. But I'm trying to remember, and I'm struggling with this myself also, that I try to remember, okay, look, okay, Krishna knows what he's doing, and this is coming from Krishna who loves me, and this is perfect. And let me just relax, and because this is river, Bhagavad Gita says it's a river of desires. It is this and I want that, and I want that, and I want that. Hold it. Stop the music. Here we are. Fine, perfect. Thank you, Krishna. How can I serve you now? Anyway, just kind of an interesting thing about how gratitude is not just counting your blessings, but just acknowledging that Krishna knows what he's doing. And I'm not going to be, what does it say? Nasochitina kanchati. Brahmabhuta persona. A person on the spiritual platform doesn't hanker or lament for anything. And that's a choice to be like that. How wonderful is Krishna? You got to squeeze that in there somewhere. Well, glories to Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Adipurusha. Yeah, definitely. This idea of, well, what is, as you said, what is real wealth? Yeah, that satisfaction, that connection to Krishna. Thank you. And yeah, being satisfied under whatever circumstance. I know. We tend to always want what we don't have. Like your friend, like you talked about. I've experienced that so many times in my life. We think it's the next stepping stone is going to be the good one. We think that, okay, the next step in our journey, that's when it's going to happen. But it's so much more an internal attitude and an internal gratitude and acceptance of what's being given and trying to make the most of that. And I'm preaching to myself right now because it's really, that's something that comes up so often. And it's important to, thank you, Adipurusha. Yeah, it's not something external.
Glories to Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Anyone else have any reflections or questions? Haribol, Jamunajaya.
Haribol Dinabandhu. Thank you so much for class. Just something that Adi said just reminded me of something that Danyadhara Maharaj says all the time that I keep with me. He says, you may not be able to always enjoy, but you can always serve. And when we look at that paradigm, we see that the serving is actually the enjoyment. The thing is never going to be the enjoyment. So as Adi was speaking, and your just last thing just reminded me of that. That's and what this Leela really represents. You can't, a thing isn't going to make, I remember once Jai Jagannath said, if a thing is what made us happy, then the same thing would make everyone happy. If the pen was the happiness, then certainly I just give 1,000 pens to 1,000 people and they'll be happy, but it's not the thing. But the true happiness comes from this connection, which is it comes from service. So thank you so much for reminding us of that.
Thank you. Yes, it's interesting what you said about, the example of the pen, giving the pen out to everyone. And, if only there was something that would make everyone truly happy. And then we think about what that is, and, the holy name of Krishna, and that Lord Chaitanya had this exact idea in mind. He wanted to give the pen to everyone, so to speak, in the form of distributing the holy name with no discrimination, with no qualification, offering it to anyone and everyone. So it's just incredible to think about this, that that there is something that makes everyone truly happy, which is connection to Krishna and through the holy name. But it's again, it does have to do with our internal state and our willingness to accept that and connect with that. So there's it's a little more complex than that, but ultimately we understand that on the deepest level that is something that brings happiness to everyone. Okay, we have a question here in the chat. So, thank you for this wonderful class. Conceptually, I can understand that we should be contented with what we have. But how does one put that into practice? Shouldn't one strive to better oneself? Yes. So we should strive to better ourselves, but sometimes cultivating contentment is a really important part of that process. Because if we're not content with what we have, we may be so distracted trying to endeavor for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing that we don't really get a chance to look within a little bit more deeply. And we don't get a chance to cultivate gratitude for what's already there. Sometimes, all we need, so to speak, is right under our nose. What people say, it's right under our nose. All of us here have received a tremendous amount of mercy, as evidenced by the fact that we're all gathering here, hearing about Srimad Bhagavatam, spending time with devotees, that we're doing this by choice. No one's forcing us to do so. So that's a tremendous amount of mercy. So cultivating that contentment is different from stagnation. It's different from inertia. Just saying, oh, I don't want to move forward at all. Everything I have is just fine, in a kind of lethargic way. That's not what we're trying to cultivate. But a contentment is more recognizing the mercy that we've received and recognizing that even in times of difficulty, that mercy prevails. And how best can I reciprocate with that mercy? So that's a little bit closer to maybe how we can cultivate contentment, by recognizing the mercy that we've received and recognizing that doesn't it doesn't waver. Only our connection to it may waver by our own conditioned state. And to better ourselves means to become more and more, to feel more and more gratitude about what we have, and maybe that will help us to grow. So it doesn't mean that we stay in one station of life only and that we don't try to better ourselves, we don't try to serve more. Adipurusha Prabhu talked about this, how you should serve. What was it that Srila Prabhupada said, Adipurusha Prabhu, about serving twice as much each year, something like that?
Double your service every year. Double your service.
Double your service every year. So that's not a kind of, thank you, Prabhu. That's definitely not a lethargic kind of idea. It's progressive. It's about always moving forward, always trying to go deeper. But at the same time, there's that contentment that we're operating on mercy that we've received. And not that we necessarily are waiting until we receive something else to try to take the next step. It's more about cultivating that contentment for what we've been given and recognizing as much as we possibly can how sacred that is, the magnitude of it. So any other thoughts on this, Adipurusha?
Nectar of instruction advises Lalyam, greed, with spiritual greed. It's not that we don't have a desire, but we desire not something selfish. We're desiring to increase our service to Krishna, to improve our service to Krishna, to grow in love and surrender. And, it's not just what you desire. And the Chinese character, it says crisis, opportunity. So we're satisfied with the endeavor to please Krishna. We're satisfied with that struggle, with that intense throwing ourselves at this task. More glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Adipurusha Prabhu. And thank you, Kartik Prabhu. Very nice question. And that contentment versus stagnation, like Adipurusha Prabhu was saying, the lolium, that greed. Nothing wrong with that kind of greed, that spiritual greed, wanting to move forward. In fact, we need it. Definitely in spiritual life, we don't want to move backwards. If we feel ourselves moving backwards, then it's definitely something to really pray about and to try to spend more time in our practices. Yeah, we don't want to move backwards. To stay still in one place, to be stable, that can be okay for some time, but ultimately we want to, cultivate that loyam, that greed, to continue to have more service, or receive more mercy, and just avail ourselves of what Srila Prabhupada has given more and more.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, is that Gail?
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Gail.
I just wanted to say how much I wanted to highlight and say how much I appreciated the distinction that you made just now, between contentment and stagnation. It was really wonderful when you said that, if you're really content or appreciating, it's not just that you recognize, oh, I am receiving this mercy in my life. If you're really recognizing and appreciating, then not only will you just notice it, but you'll also take advantage of it, apply it. It's not just like an intellectual process where you just recognize. I think recognizing or appreciating is an active thing. It's not just it's not just about noticing, or counting your blessings. If you really feel that you have gotten this mercy, then it will show up it'll show up in your life, basically. And so I thought that was such a beautiful point, because when you were giving the explanation, I was also kind of, I guess, wondering, then how do you, if you're really content, then how do you justify striving for more? Which I guess is the original question. But yeah, anyway, I was just really appreciating the answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you for sharing your realization about that, for highlighting that, because now that you highlight it, I also feel inspired as an exercise to more actively, like you said, it's an active process to recognize the mercy that we've received, and to not take it for granted, and that will inspire us to kind of continue moving forward. And when you said that, what it raised for me also is that sometimes out of false humility can be really dangerous in this respect. That for us to say, oh, I'm nobody, I haven't received anything, I'm not even I don't even deserve any of it, like that. Of course, if it's on some level, it's not deserved, because that's mercy. Otherwise, it's just some transaction. But at the same time, if we if through false humility we feel that we haven't received very much, or that we don't deserve to receive very much, then we won't feel that inspiration to act on it, and to try our best to act out of gratitude. So, confidence comes from recognition of the mercy that we've received. And I guess our growth in spiritual life, is very much dependent upon that active recognition. So, yeah, thank you for that, Gail. Could it be, Kartik Prabhu is asking, could it be that stagnation might be a sign of being discontented? Yeah, I think on some level that could be. Being discontented, you just feel like, okay, there's, what's the use? What's the use in trying, because we're not feeling enlivened. So sometimes we need that little extra push, or extra new service opportunity, or a chance to go more deeply into what we've already been given. That kind of vitality, that feeling of, okay, we're we're really trying to live in our devotional service. We're really trying to live for Srila Prabhupada, trying to live for Krishna and his devotees. So yeah, stagnation could be a sign of being discontented, but also stagnation comes from so many things. Just want to speak to the fact that stagnation can often come from like a lack of confidence. It can come from just these very human things that we go through, low self-esteem or feeling like some fear about trying to go for something on a deeper level. They call that, I think in psychology, they call that performance avoidance. That sometimes we think, if I don't take the step, then I don't have to worry about, failing. I don't have to worry about, what it might look like to come up short. But of course, ultimately, in bhakti, it has so much more to do with our intention than with the result. So that's a great relief compared to material standards. So Krishna does want us to try, and Krishna wants us to give our heart and soul, to give our all, even if the outward result is less than perfect. So sometimes it's a kind of perfectionism or something like that that also can, inspire stagnation. But our intention is everything in Krishna consciousness. So thank you so much. I wonder if anyone has any other thoughts, they're most welcome. But otherwise, we'll come to a close. I just want to be sensitive to everyone's time. But I want to leave some space if anyone has any final thoughts or ideas. Okay, so in that case, I just want to thank each and every one of you. And so nice to have your Sangha here, even if it's virtual. And thank you so much just for the opportunity to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'll offer all obeisances to you. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.